Okie doke.
Go for it.
Welcome everyone to our Doc Talk. And I am Dr. Josie Schmidt, naturopathic physician. And I'm so excited. Today we have three amazing guests with us. So I would like to introduce them to you because we are going to be getting down and talking about digestion. And I love this, even the topic title, Digesting Your Life. So with us today are two of our visionary founders and leaders, D&D, David and Dana Watts. They are acupuncturists and herbalists, and they kind of reside from, I'm going to say, the desert. They're slightly nomadic, like you'll find them sometimes in California, sometimes in Bend, Oregon, right? Those kind of areas. And our third guest is Dr. Eric Baumgardner. He is an acupuncturist and a doctor of acupuncture and functional medicine. He is from Ojai, California, and he's the founder of Essential Medicina, a tonic latte herb company, and maybe we'll get to hear about that. And his wife Cesare are doTERRA Golds in our Visionary Leaders line. And these three all went to school together about 16 years ago in Chinese medicine and acupuncture school. And so sometimes you hear that synergy of myself and Dr. Rose and Dr. Mika Karu. We get talking and having fun because we all went to school together. That's what we're going to do today with these guys. And you guys get to be fly on the wall listening to them talk from their perspective, getting us a little bit of a different perspective, right? With Chinese medicine and the importance of digestion. You hear all of us talking about that, right? You hear us talking about how, oh my gosh, if you have a hormone imbalance, you got to work on the digestion and liver, right? If you got some cardiovascular, diabetes issues, you got to work on the digestion and liver, like, right? Almost anything, we're kind of going to bring it back to that. So let's get into that a little bit and hear some really different and deeper perspectives about why this is. So welcome you guys to Doc Talk.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is going to be juicy. So I don't know. Yeah, if you guys want to just kind of start off with some of your perspectives.
Yeah, well, I guess Dana's still muted, so I guess I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, the D&D are muted.
Well, Eric, I thought you could take us through and begin us, but
That's great.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep me muted, but call me out at any moment.
Okay. Jump in whenever. Well, yeah, I love how you started, Josie, because, really from the perspective of Chinese medicine, like health can always be traced back to good digestion. And, on the other side, disease can pretty much always be traced back to poor digestion. And so, we thought this is just a central conversation to any discussion about any health issue from a Chinese medicine perspective when you're talking about any kind of symptom. And you guys, and naturopaths are like this too, in the sense that, people come to you oftentimes with a laundry list of symptoms, right? Yep. And they're talking about things that are, from our perspective, like on the surface. They're telling you, maybe they have a headache, maybe they have a skin issue, maybe they have, insomnia, maybe they have, any long list of things. And most people have, a lot of us have a lot of different things going on, right? So, our conversation is often going to steer you back to, well, how's your digestion, right? And so, starting there is, again, like looking at any kind of health issue, we have to consider what's going on with digestion. So what does that even mean? And I think as acupuncturists, we're kind of famous and infamous maybe for asking all the like uncomfortable questions about your digestion. Like, in circles of acupuncturists, it's not uncommon to, if we all go out to lunch together, it's like, here, you're like, oh, well, way too much information about your digestion.
That's the same with naturopaths. Yes.
Right. But it's because it's like all that's information. It's all. And so, our first, I guess, the first piece of the conversation for me is like talking about the difference between what's healthy and what's normal.
Great point.
Because, what is normal nowadays is not the same as what's healthy. We don't have like a healthy population overall. And so, when we're talking about healthy digestion versus normal digestion, it's very normal for people to have all kinds of, we would think of them as mild digestive symptoms: gas and bloating, indigestion, belching, maybe acid reflux, constipation, loose stools, diarrhea, sometimes, or
what? That's not normal?
A little bit all the time, right? That's normal. It is normal.
Common. It's common.
Yeah. Well, right. So then we have to differentiate, like, well, it is common, it is normal, but it's not healthy. It's not healthy to have those things all the time. That's a sign. That's your body, and oftentimes if you go and, if you were to complain about that to your doctor, they would tell you that's normal. Right. Yep. But from our perspective, it's not healthy. It's not a good sign. It means your digestion's not working well, which means, right now you may not be experiencing any significant health problems, or you may not have a full-blown disease pattern, but you have the beginnings of something that could develop over time, right? If those are all normal for you, that means your digestion's unhealthy, which means, in the long term, your health is at risk. So, when we're talking about digestion on a very basic level, we're talking about what we're putting in and what's coming out, right? And then the in between is like, how are we breaking things down and how are we extracting energy and nutrients for our body from that process, right? And so in Chinese medicine, we're talking about, especially, there are layers to that process, but what we want to focus on today is really related to kind of the beginnings of digestion, which are the stomach and the spleen. So we're putting things in, the stomach is kind of that first receptacle where we're receiving food. And, that's oftentimes when we think about digestion, people are thinking about either their stomach, right? Or they're thinking about, what comes out at the end. So you probably have this conversation where you're asking, like, how is your digestion? You get some different answers, right? People sometimes will immediately go to like, oh, well, I haven't gone in a few days, like,
right.
Constipation, like, and you're like, oh, okay. So that's what digestion means to you. It means, did I poop today?
Right. Or that it's very interesting that if you ask people if they're constipated, most will say no. And then you ask them how many times do they go a day?
Exactly.
Most will tell you they don't go every day.
Exactly.
And that's considered normal. Right?
That's common and normal. And constipation is anything less than once a day.
Yeah. Right. And when you ask them and they say, you could say, so how's your digestion? They may say, oh, it's fine, because whatever their state is to them, that's normal.
Right.
So we get specific in asking more detailed questions, which will maybe spare most of you from right at this moment. But it is very telling to see how many people have poor digestion and think that's normal. So I think that's a great way to open this up, Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's a great example, right? Like, what's normal is oftentimes, for you, it might be going to the bathroom once every few days. And sometimes you see that in families, like, oh, my mom, had this and I have this, and we all just only poop once, twice a week. But that's not healthy, right? Like a healthy digestive system will, have an elimination from Chinese medicine perspective, at least a couple times a day, maybe 2 to 3, like how many times are you eating, right? How well are you processing? So you're putting something in, you got to make space, you got to clear something out, right? So, that's a good example of that differentiation. So in Chinese medicine, we're putting food in, it's getting taken into the stomach. That's kind of our first layer of digestion. Of course, we would include chewing and what happens in the mouth in that first part of the process. So chewing our food is super important. Hopefully that goes without saying, but I know we could all stand to slow down a little bit when we eat and chew better, because that, that's the first piece. If you just throw that burrito down whole into your stomach and your stomach has to break it down, and you haven't chewed it very well because you're in a hurry or you're driving while you're eating, your stomach has to work twice as hard, right? And the stomach doesn't have any teeth, so it doesn't get to, kind of masticate things. It has to just sort of mix them up, and we see a lot of times in the top of the stomach, people have belching, acid reflux, indigestion. Sometimes you get, right away after you eat, you can feel really tired because the stomach's working really hard. And if you've ever eaten something that immediately you felt like was off, and the stomach starts to kind of rebel against what you've eaten, you can in that moment you realize how much energy the stomach is utilizing in the body, because it kind of wipes you out like instantly. If you've ever had that moment where you're like, oh, I ate something bad, like your energy is like, it's like you almost have to go fetal just to let the stomach do the work of breaking that down and trying to get it out, right?
Yeah, I think the number is it's up to 70% of our energy goes towards digestion during the day when people are eating a normal diet.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And something Eric was trying to say while you were speaking, like we're talking about digesting your life. And so if our life is one in which we're eating in the car, we're watching TV, we're doing all these other things at the same time as we're eating, that really is very impactful to how we're digesting. So an extreme example would be sitting around having a family fun night and watching a horror movie while you're eating food, right? Like how is that impacting your full experience of what you're taking in and digesting and your nervous system and all of that? So there's layers to it too, because we're holistic beings. And that's how Chinese medicine looks at it. That's how I think naturopathic medicine looks at it. And I wanted to just throw that in while we're getting into the depths of our systems working. And David's going to share a fun story about that whenever we're going to share stories, but about how his experience wasn't so fun.
I might as well share now.
Is this a good moment? Eric?
Well, yeah. So right before I met these two beautiful beings here in acupuncture school, I had been diagnosed at the age of 25 with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and at the same time hypothyroidism. And that was a big shocker for me. And I had chronically loose stools, which was normal for me for years. And at the time I was in a stressful relationship that was really unhealthy for me emotionally. And I had to eliminate certain like rich foods and be careful about what I ate. And I was told I would be on a synthetic thyroid medication, Synthroid, for the rest of my life to manage my hypothyroidism. And then when I decided to go to acupuncture school, I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to learn this medicine, I have to start with me. And even before I started school, right before I started school, I started getting treatments for my thyroid. And surprisingly to me at the time, and now it makes sense since I have an education around this lens of Chinese medicine, there was a direct link between my digestion and my thyroid. And I was treated for my deficiencies in my digestion, which helped then regulate the thyroid. And I was blown away by this connection. And good news is I've been off Synthroid for, almost 20 years now, I guess, close to. Yeah, well, I guess about 16, 17 years. And my Western doctor was blown away. He said, no, you'll have to be on that for life. I'm like, he was working with me on the protocols to get off of the Synthroid, and did another checkup 10 years later, and everything was fine. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. You're breaking all the rules here. And I said, no, we're just rewriting the rules, just a different way to do things. And for me, there was also this really powerful link between the emotions and just seeing how the emotions impacted my digestion. And I'm going to dig into this a little bit more today around how stress impacts the emotions. Stress impacts the digestion, pardon me, and how that is such a prevalent piece of our culture, this high stress culture we live in.
We just were told you can't see you.
Couldn't see me? Oh, can you see me now? I thought I had my other screen on.
No.
And we're good? Okay, good. And so starting to manage stress really started to impact and improve my digestion. So as we're digging into this, we're going to talk about this through kind of the lens of Chinese medicine and the liver and spleen and stomach, and start to see how we can regulate this and balance this and feel better, have more energy, more focus, more clarity. And the other thing I really noticed in that process was the direct link between healthy digestion and emotional stability and the ability to focus, and how important that gut health is, not just for physical health, but for our mental health too. It's really, really, there is no way to separate those. And to experience the shift from the inside out and learn this from the inside out was profound for me. So Eric started talking about the spleen and stomach. So let's talk about the spleen's function here, because we don't really hear too much about the spleen in Western medicine, but through Chinese medicine, this is such a powerhouse organ and so important for what we're talking about today. And Josie, yeah.
Before you guys get going, so from the outside point of view, I just want to say that when you guys correct me on this, so for people who are like only a little bit familiar with Chinese medicine, when they're talking about these organs and these meridian systems, like the spleen, the stomach, the liver, these kind of things, you guys are talking about it on a multi-energetic and dimensional embodied way, right? So you sometimes are meaning the literal organ, and sometimes you're kind of meaning all of it at once, and sometimes you're focusing on the organ specifically, like sometimes you're talking about the stomach, you're really talking about like the stomach, but you're also talking about an energetic meridian system that is reflecting that. It's not always, I just want to, right? You guys could say it better, but for people,
no, it's so important, Josie.
Not always the exact organ. You're not like being literal here all the time.
Well, it's a holistic medicine. So we are talking about the organ system and its holistic impact. There are emotions connected to the organs through Chinese medicine. They also connect to different sensory organs. It's a huge spectrum. When we're speaking about the meridians, we'll specify the meridian. The meridian's the pathway along the surface of the body that goes into the body and intersects with that organ, and that's a way we can treat that organ and support that organ.
So I love that you're bringing this up, Josie, because I've had patient after patient come in to me and say, yeah, I saw an acupuncturist and they told me my liver is sick, right? So this confusion of translation between the medicine and a Western mind thinking. And when we talk about the liver, you are right. It's functioning, but it's also how it is reacting to stress a lot of the time. That's a big piece. And then when we look at that, the liver can create an energetic stress over the digestion. And so that's really important because, I'll say to my patients, no, your liver is okay. It's just you are stressed and your liver is showing that in your pulses. So it's an education for us to translate, really. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that because we don't want anyone going away and being like, well, I think my liver's not doing well. It's more, how do we relax the entire being and see really what is the deficiency here, right? Because that stress can block us from actually seeing what's going on. And I see Eric nodding his head. Maybe you want to speak to that a little bit. If you want to, I can pass off the mic to you, Dr. B.
No, that's great. I think it is. It's kind of a multi-dimensional thing. And I think what I love about it is that we can talk about an organ, but we can't ever really talk about that organ without talking about how it's related to the whole. So it was really hard actually in trying to come up with a topic to narrow it down to one thing that we could talk about, because in talking about digestion, it's really hard not to move into talking about the liver and stress and toxins and the way that that all works, right? Or to move into even talking about the lungs and how the digestion affects lungs, and we're moving into allergy season, and that's all related. So I think that's kind of what Chinese medicine really does a great job of describing, is all these relationships. So when we're talking about digestion, it's kind of, if we had to put one thing in the center, it would be digestion, because it sort of affects everything else, right? And it has a connection to everything else, but everything else also has a connection to everything else. So, so it's kind of hard to say, so yeah, let's come back to the spleen, because that is, I like what you guys were saying, because, we talk about in Chinese medicine, every organ system has also like an elemental relationship. So the spleen and the stomach are earth elements. And when you think about the earth, of course, it's easy to think about the earth as a center, because it's, that's where we live. It's where we are. And in a sense, it's kind of our home. And so, you can think about, like Dana was saying, we're talking about digesting our lives, right? And if your life looks like, and this is me a lot of times, today I happen to be home and on this call because I was going to be talking, but right, like I'm eating my breakfast, I'm driving, I'm listening to a Zoom call, I'm like in my mind, I'm getting ready maybe to see a patient or to arrive somewhere, and I came from somewhere, and so like all of that is happening that your digestive system is trying to take in. And your stomach is processing the food, but it's also processing the experience and the emotion of your moment, right? And that's a lot. It's like, it's like when you go to a potluck and you're like, oh, there's chips and there's dip and there's dessert. I'm going to start with dessert. And then there's like turkey and there's meatballs and there's like, ooh, there's like sandwich bites. And then there's like, ooh, there's like a casserole. You know what I mean? And then there's like Thai food. Wow, somebody brought Thai food. And you throw all of that into your system at the same time. And most of us have experienced that, right? Like, it's just like, like I can't digest all that at once. Are you kidding me? And that's a little bit how we live our lives, right? Like we're just constantly taking in so much. And the spleen's responsibility really, from Chinese medicine perspective, is to kind of oversee the whole process from like beginning to end. And there are other organ systems that we're not really going to talk about today, the small intestine, the large intestine. We're going to talk a little bit about how the liver is involved, but not really specifically how the liver is involved in digestion, just to keep it focused. So the spleen's role in a way is to oversee that whole process. And in Western medicine, that kind of includes our pancreas, which has to do with our enzymes and our blood sugar, right? But the spleen is kind of the mastermind of that process. And so we talk a lot about what the spleen likes, because if you make the spleen happy, then your digestive process works better. And the spleen is famous for worrying. It's like it tends to want to worry, right? And it's related to the mind. It's related to the thinking mind. So each organ also has kind of an emotional association and also almost like a spirit to it. And so, the thinking mind is connected to the spleen. And so when we're thinking a lot, when we're overthinking things, and when we're worrying, when we're kind of ruminating, we're spinning, we have spinning thoughts, that's, partly something that's not being digested, right? You have a thought that you just can't quite wrap your head around. You can't quite break it down into something manageable. That's, you're like literally chewing on your cud, so to speak, just trying to break something down into something you can understand. So, I'm kind of talking first, like what the spleen doesn't like. It doesn't like the potluck so much, literally in terms of what you're eating, but also in terms of like what your day looks like, right? It's hard to process all of that. So, meal times, to make your spleen happy, like you're just eating. You stop and just eat, and you chew and you eat and you take that time to like actually let that be what you're doing, instead of like Dana said, watching a horror movie, or, you know, Googling stuff, reading the paper, talking on the phone, driving. I know, right? Like so many things that we do while we're eating that make it much harder for our digestive system to actually do its job, because it's busy processing information. It's busy processing thoughts. There's a community, maybe you guys know Thich Nhat Hanh, where they eat in silence. I think that's a beautiful, it's a beautiful kind of embodiment of what we're talking about here, right? That you just have one thing to do. And if you do that, you can do it well. And the rest of the digestive system is going to work much better. So the spleen likes, likes that simple focus. We could apply this to our life too. Like the spleen probably does not like multitasking. It's going to like it when we do one thing and do it well, and do it now and do it till it's done. And then we move on to the next thing. It's going to like routines. So, eating around the same time every day, waking up around the same time every day. We don't think of that as like food, or digestion related, but that consistency in our day-to-day makes a big difference as far as our spleen and our digestive system is concerned. Because when your spleen and your stomach know that like, ooh, it's getting to be lunchtime, what do they start doing? Start like producing digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Like they start priming your system to receive food. And if you're eating, some days at 8, some days at 10, some days at 11:30, some days at 2:45 because you forgot to eat and you just had coffee, like the system doesn't know when you're gonna take in food, right? And so, so those routines are really actually key to creating a healthy digestion. Yeah, you guys jump in.
Well, I was just thinking in terms of moving into how we support the digestion and in protocols, that it's also the same with if we're using an oil or using our supplements, to put that in the same thing with timing, being consistent. If you're working, and we're going to share some oils that we really love from a Chinese medicine perspective for supporting the digestion soon. But to use them consistently, not to, I'm going to use this one this moment, and maybe I'll try this one this moment, to like really dedicate. If you're having a consistent digestive weakness, dedicate some consistency for your body, because your spleen, the whole system will receive it so much better than using a Band-Aid style approach. Because we can turn to our oils as a Band-Aid, or we can really look and work as a root. And in Chinese medicine, we have both, right? Sometimes we have to treat with a Band-Aid first, right? Fever, for example, maybe it's because we have a lack of digestive system and we keep getting sick, but we're going to have to treat the first thing first. But overall, we really want to look at that deeper aspect and how to be consistent with our oils. This is when we're taking our experience with our oils to the next level, I believe.
Yeah. To kind of wrap that all up in a nice little mantra for everyone to think about is the spleen likes routine. Spleen likes routine. And, Eric, your example that gave me an idea about how to illustrate this, like, if you're traveling and you're eating at different times and different foods, you probably have experienced some shift in your digestion, right? Maybe a little looser, a little not as good. And that's the spleen's routine getting thrown off, different foods, different timing. So you can probably start to think about your life and how this might be showing up. So yes, the spleen likes routine. And
should we look at some oils? Does that sound good?
Oh.
Yeah? Okay. So, go ahead, David.
Oh, yeah.
Some oils that I wanted to mention that maybe aren't necessarily always thought of for digestion, but when you look at them, so fennel, ginger, spearmint, tangerine. Well, of course, we think of peppermint, geranium, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about these, but I just want to list them: geranium, marjoram, neroli. Neroli is a beautiful digestive oil that helps move through some food stasis. Digest Zen, of course. And then, of course, we have some really wonderful digestive supplements in our line. The PB Assist, we have our PB Assist Junior, which I also love to enter even as an adult. And we have our Terrazyme. So these are some pieces that we can really look at to create some protocols. Let me just highlight a little bit about specifics. So fennel is actually helpful to promote digestion. But when we take too much of it or excessive use, it can suppress our appetite. So our oils are complex. They have different depths where we really want to honor our dosage and our timing. So fennel is really a beautiful oil that's wonderful, and it also slips into the hormone support. So if your digestion's off and you've got some hormone as a woman, fennel might be a beautiful thing to add into your nightly evening routine to, as we were talking to begin, have a nice warm beverage, drop of fennel and some honey as you're winding the night down and going to bed. And this is very popular in lots of cultures, actually, to have fennel tea in the evening. You want to talk about ginger?
Sure. Yeah. Of course, we know about ginger, and ginger is very warming for the digestion. It really good at warming, what we call in Chinese medicine, warm the middle, warm that spleen and stomach system up to give it that nice fire in the belly, to give it some of that digestive fire that we hear about in Ayurvedic medicine, or even in our own metaphors of Western medicine, right? Fire in the belly. And it really, looking at some notes here, ginger is also can really help destroy parasites, which is a good thing. We all probably have some in us. So that's a great oil, and you can use that topically as well, right over the belly. Right over, not the belly, but right over the stomach. And we have some, should we just pull up those point areas? We have just a couple little slides showing some acupuncture point locations that are great to use in conjunction with these oils. What's nice about the oils is you don't need to be as specific on the point like you do with a needle, because a needle's just a tiny pinpoint. But the oils you can spread over this area. So you don't need to worry about the exact location we're going to show you, but it's kind of a good guide as to some areas where you can get a little bit more bang for your buck with these oils. So these points we're going to be sharing with you kind of have a synergistic effect with some of the oils. So right over the stomach, there's a point called Ren 12. I'm going to share that.
Yeah.
And that is a very influential point for the digestion and the stomach.
Do we see it?
This one.
Do you guys see this?
Yep. Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
So yeah, Ren 12 right there is really, really great for tonifying the function of the stomach. It's in Chinese medicine, it has a direct link to that stomach point. Eric, you want to talk about Ren 12 a little bit?
So that's just a couple fingers width up from your belly button. Is that true for anyone? 3, 4? How many? 4 fingers?
4.
Yeah, so you just take your hand and kind of go like that to your belly button, and then there's the spot. And I love that, David, as you said, it's like, you know, you can just kind of rub around that area and you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And this would be great for any of these oils that are great for the digestive system. So we've got the ginger, we've got tangerine, Dana mentioned. Really, tangerine is a great oil for tonifying and strengthening the spleen and stomach systems.
Which means if someone's having poor, like, I don't have an appetite, I just don't want to I don't want to taste anything. That can be a deficient digestion when you're like, nothing tastes right, no food feels good. Tangerine will become your friend, and you of course can add it to your water. That we always want to be aware of photosensitivity. So belly is a really safe place to use. Most of us aren't having our bellies out in the sun to use that tangerine on.
So you guys, that's new for me. Is there something energetically specific and different about tangerine than the other citruses, or are you just like tangerine's our favorite?
So there's levels of strength of our citrus oils from a more herbal perspective. And even, of course, if they're dried, but tangerine is a little more gentle.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Eric, do you have something to add to that? You look like you might.
Yeah, it's also just got like more of a kind of a transformative function in herbalism. So it's really good for kind of when the digestion is a little bit stuck, like moving things along, keeping things moving. Like we were talking about, a lot of times the digestion is just kind of stuck, and we were, I think one thing that we do want to address too here after we talk about the points is dampness and kind of the heaviness that sometimes we feel in our bodies, and literally, moving on from where we've been talking about metabolism, metabolic function. I think we can say this to some degree about all the citruses, but tangerine has a really nice function for kind of helping the body's metabolism to kick in. So yeah, it's just got a really nice affinity for these points and for kind of transforming that dampness or that stuckness in the digestive system.
Exactly. Yeah, tangerine is great for transforming damp. A term I want to just put out there that we use in Chinese medicine, kind of start thinking about our digestion and the functions of the spleen and stomach and what they do. We say they transform and transport. So how are we taking in our food? How is that being transformed? Like Eric said in the beginning, from food into energy. How well is the system doing that transformation? And then how well is it transporting that through the digestive tract? So how's our T&T? How's our transformation and transportation happening? That's where that's kind of like our starting point, right, Eric? Like, how's our T&T? Okay, is it sluggish? Is it good? And so these oils are all to kind of help support that idea of T&T.
So these are just some other points that you can think about when we're going to go back to the oils. I'm going to just show you. You might want to screenshot these if you're watching, so you can think about, let me look. So these points on the foot, these little white dots on the foot, are very helpful to reduce stress. Okay, these are a liver point. But when we push on that point, most of you are going to feel a little sore.
A little tenderness in there.
It's pretty common. And it's a great place to use an oil like geranium. Geranium is one of my favorite oils to there. And then you see this liver 14, which is the ribs. It's right under the bra line for us ladies. So you can just literally roll that geranium over your rib cage and onto the tops of your feet.
So this point up here, this is liver 14. And this is liver 3. So these are both part of that same liver meridian that are great for soothing the liver when we get stressed out. And like Dana said, geranium is a great oil for supporting our nervous system when you're getting stressed out. I use it right across my whole diaphragm, right across that, to help just reduce the stress in the liver so that it's not impacting my digestion.
Right. So most of us think, let me reach for that digestive blend because I haven't gone to the bathroom. But what if you also just try to soothe the stress, and then you might go to the bathroom? So maybe actually reaching for that geranium might be a very supportive thing. Please go ahead, Josie.
Well, the oils you just mentioned, tell me what you think of this blend, because I'm imagining it in my smell brain, and I'm getting very excited about making a blend for doing this with geranium, tangerine, and neroli.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That's
right?
Amazing.
When would you not want to put that all over yourself?
Never.
Right? But do I get the heads up? Like, do you think that would be a good just kind of daily tonic for the belly and the feet and kind of supporting these things, those three together? Is that a good threesome?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I think that's, say it again.
Geranium, tangerine, and neroli.
Yes. That's a really beautiful blend.
Okay.
I'm going to show some more points because I'm seeing time, and I just want to show you all some more points. Oops, that's the wrong way. So these are other points that are really powerful on the stomach meridian that impact So this is more, I want you to think of these points, and again, right, just rub all over the belly, but I want you to think of these more with, we call something in Chinese medicine food stasis, when food just sits in the belly and we've taken in too much. These are really helpful to kick back in peristalsis, getting things moving. Don't be afraid to rub in there and rub those oils in there. These are great spots. And then this one is
I can't see your finger.
a stomach 36.
This one? Yeah. That's stomach 36. So that's
It's a very famous acupuncture useful point. And I'll also show it to you on my leg while we're here because it's just helpful.
all right.
You want to point on it?
Right there. So this is the lateral part of Dana's.
So you can just
lower
rub
leg.
it all the way on the side of that shin. And that's with that blend that you just said, Josie. I mean, I just want to go rub it all over my body right now.
I want to take a bath in it. No.
Those are some of my favorite oils.
Yeah, that point, stomach 36, and that whole line is always like jump out of my chair on me, man. That's the situation. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just stop the share a little bit because I think Eric really tuned into something that I want to make sure we share before we open it up for questions. And then we have a few recipes for you all. But I just think this piece around the dampness and the comfort eating is something that I don't want to skip over. And I love how, Eric, you were talking about that the other night. Are you able to chime in about that damp, cold ice cream?
Yeah, so I think, kind of circling back to where we were talking about really digesting our life, right? And part of that is digesting our food and doing things that make it easier for us to digest our food, being consistent, taking time, kind of focusing in on what we're doing. But it's interesting because, because when we look at that, the job of the spleen and the stomach and the digestive system in terms of how do we take things in and transform them into energy, into, life force. And so, it's a big job to do that. And oftentimes, what happens is we're overwhelmed, right? We have so many things going on, and especially I think emotionally, we have a lot happening a lot of the time. And so we have actually like a little bit of a protective mechanism in that the spleen and the stomach kind of like that damp environment. They don't like to be really dried out. They like that little bit of dampness. And so what happens actually when we get kind of overwhelmed or we do have a lot of emotions is they're going to crave a little bit of dampness to kind of almost like putting a warm blanket around you, right? When you feel really stressed out, when you feel really emotional, it feels good to have a little, something that kind of like, it slows things down a little bit, it allows you to digest the experience a little bit more slowly. And so the way that looks in the physical is that we actually crave sweet, because sweet goes into the body and creates a little bit of dampness, and it sort of slows things down, and it puts a little bit of a blanket over us, and it makes us not feel things quite as intensely. If you've ever fasted for a day, you know how intensely you experience the world when you don't have any food, right? If you've ever been through a really, intense or traumatic experience, it's like we actually as a culture know this on some deep level. We provide people, we bake them things, and you bring, lasagnas, and you want to give people these kind of like heavy grounding foods, right? And it's like brings you down to earth, and it sort of contains you and it comforts you. But when we have that chronically, what we're doing is we're craving that sweet, we're craving that dampness, we're going to, and the body, so what the spleen really wants in this case, when it's craving that dampness, is like very simple foods like white rice, right? Easy to digest, comforting, kind of grounding, kind of a little bit dampening, but like not difficult to digest, not gonna, throw your system into crisis, not like a pint of ice cream, right? Which is oftentimes what we go to instead. We feel the body's kind of intuitive craving for dampness, and we go to like the extreme of damp, which would be like dairy plus sugar, and we go overboard, and we like dampen ourselves down to the point of creating kind of a pathological dampness, right? And when we do that chronically, then we're building up we can build up dampness in the system. We can slow down the digestive function. We can build up things like insulin resistance or just put on body weight. And that is all dampness in the body that is actually kind of covering up or, slowing down our ability to feel things and to process our life, right? Because our life is so intense. So yeah, exactly. Cauliflower rice with lots of ghee, like easy to digest, comforting, grounding. So we just kind of want to, address that there's an emotional component. There is actually like a biological mechanism that's trying to help you out when things are really emotionally intense or when you are really stressed. It's moving us towards kind of sweet or damp foods to give us some comfort. But what we've trained ourselves to do is to go towards sugar, right? And to go towards maybe things like ice cream that are damp, but like in an excess. And so we end up with this kind of stagnant and, super overburdened digestive system that can't process these really damp foods. And so we end up with more, metabolic disorders like we're talking about. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, coming back to our oils, like as far as like where are we going to when we're having these intense emotional times or when we're under stress, right? I mean, firstly, there's things that we can do to not have have such a stressful day. Part of them are creating these consistency, like, right? The spleen's like a homebody kind of, right? It likes to be like consistent. It likes to have home feel safe. I think, as David was telling his story, I was thinking, oh yeah, of course the spleen was off. Like home didn't feel like a safe place during that time in his life. Home was stress. If home means stress, your digestion's going to be off. So how do you create home as a safe place? How do you create home as a place where you have consistency and routines? You're nourished, right? And then, in our day-to-day, as stress and emotions come up, we have our oils to kind of buffer things. And then if we do feel ourselves really needing some comfort, needing some kind of slowing down this emotional process, moving towards things that aren't like hyper sweet and hyper damp, like ice cream and refined sugar and refined flour and those kinds of things, but, kind of saying, oh, like actually a sweet potato or, cauliflower rice or a grain in moderation that's going to feel really good. It's going to give you that same kind of grounding effect that you're looking for without creating kind of crisis in your body, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
you guys want to do some protocols?
Yeah, let's go into you guys wanted to talk about really supporting the metabolic, that kind of process with the spleen. I know back in the feed, we also, from the second slide you guys had with the stomach points, the question was which oils specifically would you recommend for, is it the same oils? Is it the geranium, tangerine, neroli, and it would maybe also fennel, like, yeah, someone's kind of getting those side and then up above, if it's all in the same time, can they be using the same oils? Is that the best indication? And then
Yeah, so obviously the oils are really safe to mix and match and try different things. I personally really love using the geranium more on these liver points, the liver 14 right here. Can you see that? And then liver 3 right here. Because I feel like geranium for me really helps calm the nervous system, really helps this to soothe the liver. That when the liver is stressed, it'll impact the digestion. So I use the geranium more on these points, and then on the Ren 12 and these other stomach points, stomach 25 and stomach 36, those are where I would use more of like all the other oils, like the tangerine, ginger, the marjoram I would use more on stomach 25. Ginger would be great for stomach 36. And again, you can just try different things. I'm looking over here, and of course we have the DigestZen oil, you guys, which is a great oil for our digestion. That's why it was created. So using that just topically over the belly, over the stomach organ, or internally, it's going to go and help regulate the function of the stomach. So it's, there is no exact protocol that's the one to use. These are what I've tried for myself and with patients. And I'm telling, for me, the geranium is like magic with reducing that stress right across the diaphragm. Here, I'll stand up a little bit. I put it just right here and right over this. This is where my liver is. Just right over the liver. Just let it kind of get in there. And then I always take some deep inhales to get it in, have that emotional response right away.
Okay, so for people, we're getting done. We have, the last 10 minutes, and there was the question about IBS and some more helpful indications. And just to basically say, yes, IBS is great. All of this stuff we've been talking about, because irritable bowel syndrome is really a syndrome. It's not a specific thing. And it's really what Western medicine, when they can't diagnose it as anything else, they kind of lump it into that little category. And it can be tons of things, but what you do know is that the things that we've been talking about here in terms of needing support and tonic and more routine and all of this stuff with your digestion and the connection with stress is definitely a component with IBS. And IBS is a great template for almost all other digestive processes and issues. So, right? And I love, David, how you just said that. You had your flat hand and you're kind of just like doing that, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And you can, when you first start with oils, start with some carrier oil like coconut oil with your geranium. When you're working over kind of organ systems, if you haven't worked with a lot of topical oils, if you're someone who's been working with a lot of topical oils and internal oils, and you know how your body is okay with oils, then right, you can go. Do you do straight geranium, David?
I do. Yeah, I use 2 drops on my in my hand and rub them in, and then take some. Yeah.
So a lot of us, longtime users, we know how our body's going to work. We've done a lot of processing and detoxing. In the beginning, I would suggest using carrier oil.
Yeah, I agree.
There you go. It's a broad, that sounds great, a broad stroke. And then the other oil, right, was up here. And then other ones were here. So I'm imagining kind of like, is that okay to do like a circle?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yes, you would want to go clockwise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't tell on the camera.
Clockwise circle.
Clockwise circle. And you're just really encouraging happy digestion, right? We're just going to say happy, good digestion. And I always encourage when you're stepping into a protocol to take notes, if you're working on your digestion, because it's very easy to forget where you began when you start to feel better. And it's good to know what oil is working for you, because we do have options, So I promise to, underneath the call, list out all the oils that are our top favorites so that we have them. Because there are different ones to try. Every single one of us is a little different.
Yeah, great. And along the lines of IBS, we all are very different. So I'm glad that this question came up about notes on IBS. And Josie, I love that you said that's kind of like a catch-all phrase from Western medicine, and it's not even a real diagnosis in a way. It's like, well, we don't really know what that is, so we'll call it IBS. Your bowels are irritable. And when we were in acupuncture school, I remember learning that and reading in a book how there's a specific example related to IBS, how a Western doctor could get like 9 different patients coming in and he could tell them all, oh, that's IBS. Those same 9 people could go in to see an acupuncturist and get 9 completely different diagnoses because of how specific we get with the organs and dampness and all of the different things and details we're not really getting into today, and how we can really hone in on what the problem with that digestive system is. And it's been such a gift. And that's why I shared my story around treating my IBS and my hypothyroidism with acupuncture, because Western medicine didn't have an answer for me. So thank you for that question. It's really important to know if you've been diagnosed with IBS, you can get more specific by reaching into a naturopathic doctor, an acupuncturist, and get really honed in on where that imbalance lies in your system, so that you can really tonify or fix it, get it into balance, and get healthy digestion, and move away from what you think is just normal for you. And Western medicine say, oh, you just have irritable bowels. You actually can change that through other modalities. And these oils could be a really great start to just do that on your own. Very safe, easy way to start.
There's a question here, because the spleen likes routine. What are your thoughts on fasting? So yeah, I'm going to answer it a little, and I'd love to have Eric come in on this from a functional medicine perspective, because I personally believe from a Chinese medicine perspective, it depends on how strong your system is. If you have a weaker system and you step into fasting because this is the fad right now and people are having great results, but your particular system isn't ready for that, it can cause a lot of stress for the adrenals. It's a whole nother conversation that we like to talk about a lot in this stock talk, but it can cause stress. But for someone else who is in a different process, they have a healthy digestion system, it could be strong. But Eric, I'd love your thoughts. I know we have little time, but.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I kind of look at it a little bit more like you from the kind of excess and deficiency standpoint. Like if there's an excess, the fasting is going to make sense. But if you're someone who's really deficient right now, fasting is going to be really hard, and it may throw you into a kind of a detoxifying that, that is really unpleasant. From the spleen's perspective, I think, again, like it can be done in a good way. I think, it's the kind of thing where, some people are doing once a week kind of intermittent fasting. Like there's a little consistency there that we're going to create. There's some expectation that you could build in if this is something that works for you and it's working, but you just want to make it better for the spleen. Just create that consistency around it. Right. And I did want to say one thing, because we were talking IBS and stomach massage. If you are putting the oils in your IBS, and you go clockwise, it's going to encourage digestion to move more. So if you're in a phase where you're having loose stools, you actually want to go counterclockwise and slow that digestion down. If you're having 10 bowel movements a day, you do not want to massage something in clockwise, because it's going to create more movement. You actually want to reverse that and slow it down.
Yeah,
I had the same thought, Eric. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I say something about, I love this whole thing with the fasting and like this whole conversation. What we don't talk about enough is kind of like the sequence of self work and getting into healthy digestion. Yeah. And fasting is more, I would say, advanced kind of process.
Definitely.
So, yeah, and we have, like, within the world of doTERRA and our supplements, this is why all of us, you'll see me talking about this and all of these other guys, all the docs, we always want to see a foundation of months, ideally, of people working with the Lifelong Vitality Pack and Terrazyme and some citrus in their water as that minimal baseline. Because these things are what within the doTERRA system are about nourishment.
Right.
Right. So this is the problem that Chinese medicine has with fasting, is if you go into fasting and you're in a depletion state, which most standard American diet people are, our cells are depleted. We're at a cellular depleted level. We do not have the nutrients to detoxify and cleanse and fast appropriately without freaking out our body and having all these symptoms and unpleasant experiences. And so, we
we want to go through a phase of real nourishment and building up at a cellular level for a period of time, and then being at a supported place when first you do cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Like cleansing precedes fasting, I would say. Like you have a couple, 1 or 2 positive experiences cleansing. And then you can bring fasting into your cleansing experience and intermittent fasting and all of that. But jumping right to it right off the bat is where we have so many people kind of having these bad experiences of not feeling good about it and not healthy, and their body is like pushing up all these reactive symptoms because it can't do what you're asking it to do. It doesn't have the resources.
Exactly. I would add to that too, that, you know, from the spleen's perspective, when you fast, you are shutting down the stomach and the spleen. They get a break, which is good. But as you know, if you have fasted before, you know, when you come back, it's hard to eat.
Yeah.
So your appetite is, you know, you're hungry, but your appetite is like, it's slow. You have to start small. If you go from fasting to having a big meal, you can actually get sick. And so you're actually kind of shutting the spleen down for a while. And if, you know, again, if it's already compromised, that may not be the best thing. And you just have to really take that into account. We want a robust digestion, you know, and we don't want to, you know, kind of chronically be shutting that down if it's not the right time, like you said, in your process. So it is definitely a more advanced thing from my perspective too, and a little bit like a whole other conversation. But I think it's great because it's so, you know, it's so up right now.
So the question in Facebook, and then we're going to wrap up, is: does the same happen with intermittent fasting? Is that an advanced thing?
I think so too. I mean, I think it is. I would, you know, it's it's like a little bit less advanced than just straight up fasting with no food, right? Because it's a little easier.
Right.
And sometimes we intermittent fast without knowing it, right?
Right, but when you what I see is that, you know, it's the keto diet and some of Bulletproof, and there's, you know, it's very popular now. And if people they don't have the foundation of cellular nutrition and nourishment, and having gone through a couple processes of building up with that, and you go into intermittent fasting, you're going to have headaches. You're going to have the symptoms. So it's not to say that you can't do it, but it's going to be like being on the couch all winter long and then going right into a marathon or a 10K.
Let's do it.
Like, is there a way that you could do that is more nice to your body and more healthy? Like, could you start to, like, there's that thing, the couch to 5K, where they just start you walking for a couple days and a couple weeks and stuff like that.
Yeah, right? Sometimes you get like a rebound, right? You get almost like a rebound weight gain. Like you might lose that weight that you're trying to lose by intermittent fasting, but then you tend to actually put on more weight because your stomach and spleen aren't working as well.
I think the important thing with intermittent fasting, especially if it's with the idea of going to a ketogenic diet, is you cannot deviate from that, because you'll slip out of ketosis and you'll be burning sugars again. And that's when, if you're eating a ketogenic diet and not doing intermittent fasting, you might just start gaining all that weight. So it's important to really understand what you're getting into if you're doing intermittent fasting and going ketogenic, because you don't want to be just turning that into fat on your body. You know, it's
right. So look, this always happens. Doc talks beget other doc talks. So maybe we need to have a more like a next digestion too, about functional medicine issues with like all the diet systems things that are happening out there. That would be fun.
Here, I'll just do it in one sentence. There's no one right diet for everyone.
Correct. Yeah.
Everyone's different. Right?
Josie, before we sign off, I wanted to offer a recipe, a kanji recipe that is one of classical Chinese medicine offerings for tonifying digestion. And it is probably not so popular right now because it is rice. And it has been a savior for me. time and time again with my mom. My mom has autoimmune and very intense digestive issues, and grains are not usually good for her, but this has brought her back. It's actually brought a lot of pets back to life when pets get really sick. This is really, really useful. We'll pop this up in the different places, but you can Google it. And I wanted to say you can add cardamom or essential oil of cardamom, ginger, or turmeric into there, and it's going to be delicious, and it's going to soothe that exact place that Eric was speaking to, this place of wanting comfort and wanting that nourishment. And you can actually do a day of kanji. It's one of the greatest ways to bring somebody back from a very deep illness. It's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, rice is, there's such healing powers, especially when you cook it these ways and add the herbs, you know, in Ayurvedic medicine, right? We have, you know, when you do, what is it? Ghee and,
Khichdi?
Khichdi.
Yes, in the khichdi, and, you know, and that's bringing the dal and the rice and cooking it immensely together. These are very nutritive things for the GI and for healing.
And easy on the GI. And
yes.
Yes.
Would you guys recommend, there's a question quickly, this as a good thing after someone has had a colonoscopy? Would this make the stomach and spleen happy coming back into having a regular bowel movement after that kind of disruption?
I would be very adventurous to say yes, for sure.
Yeah, I think this exactly, here it is. Here is a beautiful recipe for
it
what
brings your digestion back. You know, and you don't have to use the cardamom, ginger, turmeric, all of them. And even tangerine is going to be, it's going to be yummy.
So yummy.
You just choose what you like, right? It's about serving your body in that nutritive, pleasing, nourishing way. Yeah. We could go on. It's very clear.
All right. Well, this has been juicy and awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining. And I think we need to have another one.
Part 2.
Yeah, everyone, just be mindful of what you're digesting into your life, the music you listen to, the images you watch. What are you bringing into your system? It's all being digested through your spleen and stomach. So make it nourishing. Yeah, make it nourishing.
Thank you,
Thanks
Josie.
for having us, Josie.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Partners at D&D.
And we'll get to all the questions on the Facebook. You know, if you have other questions, we'll get to them, we promise, in the next day or so. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.